Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Divided Films, the podcast where audiences and critics disagree on movies and we pick sides. Today, with me, as always, is my co host Keith.
Hello.
And joining us back today is our good friend Dominic Nero. Welcome back, Dom.
Guys, it's so great to see you both again here on my computer screen.
It's like you're here in person. So Dom, since we last had you on the podcast, you started a podcast of your own with another past guest of ours, Adam. So you want to just do a quick little promo for that before we get started on our conversation today?
Yes, thank you for mentioning it. We've been working on a podcast called Eye of the Duck. It's a film podcast where every episode we search for the scene at the center of a film and we sort of unpack the film from the inside out. Eye of the Duck refers to a David Lynch quote where he speaks about how if you want to get to know a duck, you got to look at its eye. It's a very Lynchy sort of thing. Mm-hmm. He thinks every movie has an Eye of the Duck scene. So in our podcast, we try to find them.
Yeah.
And when is this episode going to be going out?
I believe in 3 weeks, I think.
In April.
Like second week of April.
April-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, early April.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so in April we'll be we'll have new episodes, I think, every Monday of April, and we're doing some new releases and just trying to go full steam ahead for this beginning of our podcast.
Yeah, right on, man. I've listened to an episode and it's great. So definitely I recommend to everyone check out Eye of the Duck.
Thank you.
Definitely worth checking out.
Adam and Dom.
Thank you guys for inspiring us to get our act together.
I didn't want to say it. We started a trend.
You really did. I mean, I love your show, and
thanks, man.
I thought talking about films would be a great way to, get through this troubling time and also get closer to each other as friends, and it totally has been.
It's just our excuse to see friends, really. Right, during this time. So today we are going to be discussing the 2018 comic book film Venom, starring oh my gosh, why am I blanking on this? Starring Tom Hardy. Of course, I have it right in front of me. I can't even read it. Starring Tom Hardy. This movie falls into the category of having a negative score from critics and a positive score from audiences. On Rotten Tomatoes, critics only give this a 29% approval rating, but audiences give it an 81% approval rating. So over 50% difference there is quite significant. And the critics' consensus, Venom's first standalone movie turns out to be like the comics character in all the wrong ways. Chaotic, noisy, and in desperate need of a stronger attachment to Spider-Man. So, yeah. The very negative consensus there from the critics, but definitely audiences were more on board with this. So what do you guys think? I mean, for this podcast, I was watching this movie for actually the first time. And so, had you guys seen this before around the time it was originally released? And what were your initial thoughts? And also, what do you think of this divide? Let's start with Dom.
Okay. I don't know if I have gotten the reputation of being like a snobby film person. I hope I haven't. But I think you might expect that I hate this film because I think a lot of snobby film critic people really did hate it. But I love this movie. I saw it, I didn't see it in theaters, but I heard so many good things about it from people that I admired. Not necessarily the top critics, just friends of mine and critics that I trust, I guess, people online. And I watched it on streaming, and man, was I surprised at how much I enjoyed it.
I was too. I kind of went into it with, I guess, a low bar. I from the trailers, I didn't really think it would be that good. And then I watching it for the first time, I was surprised how much I was enjoying this. I was watching this and I'm like, this isn't as stupid as I thought it would be. I'm kind of buying it. I'm buying the setup. I'm buying what they're doing. I can't really say that there's like, I don't know, anything that seems like what I thought it would be. I expected really dumb plot points that would make no sense, but I'm like, this is, I guess, how you would do a Venom movie, right? This all is working for me, and uh, I can't really even explain it. I'm like, wow, like this is just way above what I expected. What about you, Keith?
Uh, like you, Dom, this is my second time seeing this. But like you, Dom, a lot of people in my life said this is a great movie. They had fun. They loved it. And I think the first time I watched it, I was kind of maybe I wasn't in the mood. I think I got home from work. It's not that I didn't. This movie's not a 29%, but definitely walked away going like that was kind of stupid. And then this time I watched it, I s- I still think it's stupid, but damn it, there's fun to be had in that. I think it kind of knows that it's stupid, or at least Tom Hardy does.
I totally
And
agree.
he
Yeah.
like Tom Hardy, he is such an actor. Like he is you should watch this if you want to be an actor. Watch this movie. Watch Tom Hardy in general, but
Well, yeah, I think the whole cast
like,
really elevates this movie. I mean, not obviously Tom Hardy does a really good job, but also you have Michelle Williams and Riz Ahmed in this movie. I mean, these are like really good actors, and you usually see them signing on for very well written scripts, and like sometimes like award contending movies. So I feel like the fact that they're even in the movie in the first place made me think, okay, like I feel like they wouldn't sign on for something really stupid. Like the fact that they're even in this makes me have a little more confidence in it. So I think they all uh, like sold it pretty well. I mean, Tom Hardy, I mean, he's an actor who does some really he makes a lot of bold choices in his movies, and he has played a lot of very physical parts before. So he seemed almost kind of at home doing a movie like this, actually.
He said some insane things about this movie.
Yeah.
Like he compared his voice that he's doing to Ren and Stimpy.
Uh,
Like he
yeah.
just seemed to come into this with such like he said uh he compared the Venom and Eddie Brock to Ren and Stimpy,
Hmm.
and he wanted to use a James Brown lounge lizard voice for Venom, which it's
What
just
is
like
that?
I just get the idea that like he decided he was going to have so much fun doing this,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that like resonates in the final product. And I often think about Joker, the film from last year that was such a subject of controversy, and it's sort of a. I was actually pitching this as an essay at Esquire where I work, but I never got around to writing it. I don't think people quite understood my pitch.
Hmm.
I found that I found a lot of similarities between Joker and Venom because I felt that Joker is similarly about like a anti-hero kind of guy who gets overtaken by darkness. The difference in Venom though is I feel like Venom has like a lot of fun. There's a lot of like joy to be had in the darkness,
I agree.
whereas in Joker it's just like all desperation, depression, melancholy. And my pitch was that we already got a great Joker film. It's called Venom.
That's so funny, man. Yeah, I guess. Well, this movie definitely doesn't take itself too seriously at
No,
all.
no.
Whereas the
Why
Joker,
should it though?
yeah, no,
Yeah,
it shouldn't
it's
really at all.
Venom.
Like this
Yeah,
movie feels like this movie kind of feels like it has the spirit of an old comic book movie, which I appreciated back
that's a
from
great
maybe
point.
like the
Yeah.
2000s. I mean, in this era where obviously like the Marvel Cinematic Universe had been dominating comic book movies, and then like you had like the X-Men franchise kind of going down in quality. Then you just have this Venom film that's just doing its own thing. And the more I think about it, the more I just kind of admire it. It's like screw like this on paper may sound like a crazy and like stupid movie, but actually it's just kind of like reminding me of what I liked about some of those older superhero movies.
Outside of the MCU and the any like DC comic book movie, Venom reminded me of a lot like the first Blade or the
Yeah.
Daredevil with Ben Affleck. Something that like if you didn't know it was a comic book, it's a like this is the movie that you're getting. It's kind of it doesn't care that much about the the mythos. It there is like a an action movie out there or style of action movie that I like Underworld or that I don't gravitate, but it's I would put it under that umbrella of like it's not, and I guess it's not MCU or DC like this not franchisable, but this connected. It might be in the future. I think that they're hoping for it to be. It's the start of something for Sony. Uh,
Right.
What's it called? The Sony Pictures
Spider
universe of Marvel. Yeah, what is it?
of
What are they
second
calling it?
of second rate more of Spider-Man characters because I think we're supposed to get like a
Yeah.
Jared Leto Morbius movie when that comes out.
The
Uh,
Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters. That's
oh,
their title.
Interesting.
that doesn't have the nice like
It does.
MCU like that
I know.
flows off the tongue.
Oh,
Yeah. Right.
the SPU at MC.
Like
I'll remember that.
I'm
The
happy.
Spunk.
I'm happy with this being a franchise. It's just like, oh, it's nice to not have it connected to anything. I thought I would
Yeah.
not like it outside of Spider. I thought like Spider-Man had to be a part of it. I'm like, no, like
No,
he's
not at
not
all.
needed at
I
all.
mean, the consensus is like, oh, this movie needs to be more connected to Spider-Man. I was like, why? It's totally fine doing its own thing. I mean, if anything, I guess keep adding more of these symbiote characters. They alluded to Carnage for a sequel, I suppose. I mean, they didn't even allude to it; they just straight out said it.
Oh, the
It
best
was
stupid line.
it's pretty ridiculous, and that's almost like a parody of a comic book scene. But anyways,
I mean, he basically says, "I'm gonna be Carnage."
yeah, yeah,
He
he
just
totally
basically.
just says it outright. But if you just maybe had, because I'm aware in the comics, there's a whole saga where you have all these symbiote villains. So if you just keep introducing those characters and you just maybe have like just a symbiote franchise, I'm fine with that. I don't need this to be connected in some grander universe. Like we already got that for like the last like 10 or so years. Not everything needs to be a giant movie universe.
I agree. I completely went into this and all of the buzz around the movie leading up to its release thinking Sony needs to stop. This is just an obvious cash grab. This character does not work outside of Spider-Man. They need to work out a deal with the MCU. They can't have their own Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man. It doesn't fucking make any sense. But then on the other hand, I think it's important to realize that like there is a lot of like Venom storytelling, just Venom himself. There's a lot of Venom comic books, and I remember reading fans of Venom as the movie was being promoted saying this looks like real, like authentic Venom shit. And like, we love Venom. We don't care about Spider-Man. And it looks like they're actually doing a Venom movie. And I was so surprised that when I saw the movie, like the fact that Spider-Man is not in it, I think works to its advantage because
Yes.
it's just, it fully embraces the idea that like it's doing its own thing. And you know, it's like, fuck it. Good for them. Like they somehow did it. And it is a Venom movie for whatever you're going to say about it. It is totally Venom.
Right. I mean, if anything, if all the things that you wish you gotten more from this character say in his first film appearance in Spider-Man 3, this is kind of filling what you maybe didn't get from that movie that you did want to get. Obviously, you see a lot more of like the Venom look, which does look really great on screen. And
Yeah, he looks awesome in this movie.
yeah, you get like a more interesting Eddie Brock than you did in Spider-Man 3. I mean, it almost like as if it had that in mind and was trying to fulfill some sort of like something that the fans maybe had been wanting for all these years with getting this character on screen. So I guess, and I guess I don't really mind that. I'm not usually one to be a fan of studios trying to super cater to what they're hearing from the fans, but I think in this case, they saw something that people had been asking for a while, and they gave it to us.
Eddie, what are you doing here? Oh,
No, I have to tell you something. No, I have to. Word told me you were here. You're the only person that I trust.
Are you drunk?
No, I broke into the Life Foundation.
You did what?
Yeah, but I think I may have been infected.
Hey, Eddie, you look like you're in a bad way.
Yeah, I am in a bad way.
Eddie, Jesus!
This is dead. Dead.
I think, well, this is a movie that's been in. They tried every which way to make this movie. Like, I think they did try to make it in the late 90s with David S. Goyer. Uh,
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
yeah, and of course, I think any hope of a Venom movie got squashed with no pun intended, but Spider-Man 3. I think they were hoping for that Venom to be a popular character, and then Deadpool. Deadpool was like a lot of studios are like, what is an R-rated comic property? Deadpool successful, Logan successful. Let's do Venom. I'm surprised they haven't done Lobo. That's like the window was open for that. That's a great character, but that's besides the point. But and this movie isn't even R-rated. It's PG-13, which is interesting.
Yeah, because it's not really that violent. I mean, the most violent things is when a couple of people have their heads bitten off, I suppose, which was a bit jarring. But at the same
Without
time
blood,
that happened,
though. Without
yeah,
blood.
No
that's
blood.
that's true.
He
When that did-
cauterizes the wounds.
Well, yeah, his teeth are so hot. When I saw that though, I kind of felt like I did when I was maybe 11 or 12 watching some of these movies, where I'm like, oh man, that was awesome. It just maybe like that was a cool moment, as like brutal as it is. But again, that's the kind of thing you want from a movie like this. So it is maybe showing that there's different ways to, obviously, like there's been so many superhero movies, but it's in a way, even though it's harking back to some of the older films, it's also showing that you can still find a new mold within this genre after all these years and all these films.
I felt like we got to a point with these superhero movies where a lot of people were saying the term like superhero exhaustion or
Fatigue.
Yeah, that's what it is. Which I think I was feeling too, because as we reach like the end of all those phases of the Avengers films towards Infinity War, Endgame, I think a lot of us were thinking, how can they possibly sustain this? Like, how can they continue? But right around the time of Venom, we had Venom and Aquaman.
Oh, yeah.
Two movies that I really thought like changed my perception of what these movies can be and what they can continue to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Aquaman is very similar to Venom in that it is so big and so stupid and so like just like immersed in its own world, and for that I fucking love that movie too. I love Aquaman.
Aquaman.
You guys should do Aquaman.
I don't know, man. I would say that Aquaman is too stupid. That's
not
to me.
for
I think
me.
Venom is like the right amount of dumb.
No such thing.
No, I think Aquaman proved to me that there is such a thing, and that was way too far down the stupid scale.
Is Aquaman a divided film?
I think it might barely be qualifying. I'm sure
I
we can
demand
do
that
it.
you guys do Aquaman.
All right, just because you
I
asked.
think that's an interesting comparison. But I think where they kind of separate to me is what makes Aquaman unique and special is the directing. What makes Venom unique is Tom Hardy.
That's a great
I like
point.
and Ruben Fleischer, I think where Ruben Fleischer his strengths are his characters. I think Zombieland, I think if he has good actors and well written characters, he can have he has a good hit. I think Tom Hardy kind of saved this movie though from being a superhero fatigue type movie. Like there's really nothing that special about the bad guy. I think Michelle Williams
Right.
is once again kind of wasted. That's I
Yeah.
think that's popped up in an old episode before. But I think Tom Hardy he gets into a lobster tank. That's not the eye of the duck of this movie.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
when I was like, whoa, what a crazy image. I mean, that whole restaurant scene was pretty wild. And I
God, what a fucking scene.
Like,
and it's
so good.
It's so funny because it's almost as if there's only like one like helpless woman who works at this restaurant who like can't do anything about this crazy guy who's eating people's food and swimming in a lobster tank. I thought that was so funny. Like just one woman who's like, please stop. He just keeps going and going.
When Tom Hardy takes a fish carcass out of the trash and eats it, that's my Eye of the Duck scene.
Oh, all right.
him just chomping down on lobster, like he went for it. He's just like, he did it for his kid. Like he just really kind of gave it 100% for this movie.
It's kind of the perfect movie for him, because every time there's a new Tom Hardy movie, I think we all anticipate what fun, silly, stupid accent is Tom Hardy going to do next. And in this one, he gets to do two.
That's right. Yeah, two very distinct voices. I mean, his Eddie Brock voice. I mean, even
It's
his
like
whole
incomprehensible what he's trying to do with that voice. Like sometimes it sounds vaguely British, other times he sounds like Al Capone or something. It's like,
It does
what?
slip out. It does. His British accent does slip out.
It's beautiful.
he half the time he seems like he's a junkie or something in terms of both
Yes.
his voice and the fact that he's very dirty throughout most of the movie. I'm like, geez, this guy needs a shower. God.
I kept thinking watching it that he decided to play Eddie Brock as a combination of like Charlie, Mac, and Dennis and Frank from Always Sunny. Like, let's do
Yes.
all four of them as one character. Or all three.
And their evil manifests in this horrible alien demon slime thing that bites people's heads off. And then, yeah, you're right. You mentioned like the villain isn't really much to like write home about. But you know who actually I was kind of pleasantly surprised to see Jenny Slate in this movie. I'm a fan of hers, of her voice work. I mean, she doesn't really again do that much. She's just this kind of plot device character. But I don't know. I'm a fan of that voice, and the whole time every time I hear her voice, I think of either Mona Lisa from Parks and Rec, or I think of Tammy from Bob's Burgers. So just a little shout out for her.
And Dan Egan, for Veep fans out there.
From Veep,
his name
that's
is
right.
his
Oh,
name
yes.
is Dan in that. I'm just like, I don't know. It's hard not
Yeah,
to smile.
it's the same character, maybe. I actually just got into Veep a few months ago. I'm like halfway through the 4th season, and yeah, seeing him in that, I keep picturing him as the same like overly ambitious sociopath politician guy, like in this movie as well. Actually, I thought they were setting his character up to be maybe in the next movie like the villain, because it seems like if they continue with this movie's like a franchise, a sequel, that eventually the Michelle Williams character will get back together with Eddie Brock, and then maybe like the doctor character will be like jealous or something, and then he can get a symbiote and get his revenge or something. That was like my prediction.
I'm actually kind of happy they didn't end up back together. Like, I think that was like.
But the hint is they will if they do a sequel. Like he'll try to win her
Well,
back.
Venom's like hinting at a poly relationship here. He's like,
Hey man, I mean he brings a lot of energy to anybody. He increases their
Yes.
strength. I'm sure he also increases some other things.
Woke Venom. I am so excited for Let There Be Carnage.
You know what? Me too.
I've been thinking about it all pandemic. Like, if I can just get through these next few months, I can see Let There Be Carnage.
More carnage, which like I don't know, like Woody Harrelson, right? In that bonus scene with what looks like a carrot top wig.
Yes. Oh, I cannot wait.
I mean, sure, just go full crazy with him.
Well-
And then I guess Riot is another character, right? Another symbiote. He was like the symbiote villain of this movie.
Yeah, gotta love
Anti-Venom.
Riot. Everybody loves Riot.
Riot. And then I'm not as familiar. Like who are some of the other? Do we know the other symbiote villains? I guess they could have.
There's Peter, Paul. No, I don't. Like, I'm sure they're gonna take. I wouldn't be surprised if they take Spider-Man villains, like aside from Carnage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you can't do a
there is-
symbiote every movie, can you?
If it's a symbiote, if it's a symbiote franchise, then why not?
But you know who's directing,
There's-
right? The sequel. Andy Serkis.
Who's that? Oh, really?
I think that's
Yes.
so interesting.
Wow.
I cannot wait to see his directorial debut with Venom, Let There Be Carnage.
Uh, but there's this the sequel will be rated R, so I think we might even get like I think we will see like a true Venom movie with Let There Be Carnage. And I am kind of optimistic with it only because as we're recording this, I have some theories about like when how studios where they place movies on their film docket, and usually when two box office movies go head to head, one studio plays chicken with the other. I think the best example was like when Batman v Superman was coming out, and then Captain America: Civil War took its May spot, and then everyone's like, "No, Batman. No one's gonna see Captain America. We're all gonna go see Batman v Superman." But that movie ended up moving to March. It kind of is a
Yeah.
sign of like I always think it's like a sign of the weaker movie moving.
Yeah.
The Fast and Furious 9
Interesting.
has taken like it's gonna be Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, and Fast Furious 9 F9. They ain't as far as I know, Venom is not moving. They are very confident in this movie.
Okay. I mean,
That's a theory.
I'm
That's a theory. I hope it's gonna be interesting. But
I'm confident. I mean, given like the people, given my enjoyment of the first film, and then also saying that, like Andy Serkis is like going to be directing, and again Tom Hardy's coming back, like that gives me confidence. But I guess financially, the Fast and Furious franchise has such like a loyal fan base that like those usually make a ton of money
So
regardless.
did this movie. This movie made it's like
Did
this
it?
movie's close to $1 billion. Like 856 million.
Damn.
Well, I think a lot of that was overseas, right? Wasn't this a huge hit in China?
That's how you get to a billion.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh yeah, over these days, or like, I don't know, well, what does the box office even mean anymore? But like pre-COVID, like yeah, um, it was like yeah, you have to look at that whole like global market, right? Because that can mean the difference between making money or losing
I
money.
just find that interesting that like Venom 2 right now is like I think it's been a couple weeks since they made that announcement and Venom has not moved. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be interesting.
I have decided to stay. Wow. On my planet, I am kind of a loser, like you. But here, we could be more.
Excuse me?
And I'm getting to like it here.
Oh, you like us now, do you, huh?
However, there will be nothing left to like if we do not stop that rocket.
Oh, I see. Right, when it comes to being completely annihilated, then it's back to we.
It is we. Like it or not, it is going to take both of us.
Cut the bullshit. What really made you change your mind?
You.
I
Yeah.
just keep thinking back to this movie because you were saying about its reception. It didn't have like any sort of like blowback or like cultural like controversy the way like Joker did or the way Batman versus Superman did. It just seems like this movie came out and like it had its fans. Other people admired it. Some people didn't like it. And I feel like I'll always look back at like this movie and think of it as like the good guy, like the which makes sense because it's Venom. It's like the silly anti-hero when compared to a movie like Joker. I will always think of as like such an exhausting argument between so many exhausting people, whereas Venom was just like, yeah, it's just good.
Yeah, right. I agree. The Joker movie I was not a fan of, and I almost felt like it was like a chore having to go through it and then also like defend my opinions about it.
Oh God,
And
I don't want to get into. Have you guys done Joker? You haven't, right?
we could do it. I don't think it's as divided.
Really?
Well, here's the thing. It was.
Was it critically? I guess it was critically and audience
I think
acclaimed,
the
right?
audience score is like higher than the critical score, but the
Right.
critical score, like when the movie first came out, I think it kind of was more divisive. But I guess as the weeks went by, more critical reviews came in. It kind of like got closer. But like, what the heck? It's our podcast. We can make exceptions to like whatever criteria, and eventually have a conversation about it if we want. But it definitely seems more fun to watch and talk about Venom than it does about Joker. I mean,
agree.
I find it just so silly too that Venom, like in the comics, Venom is never like a good guy or does like good, right? He's always just an enemy of Spider-Man. Where in this,
I'm
like
not sure if he doesn't he kind of become sort
He's
of
an
a good
anti-hero.
guy a
I
little
think
bit.
he's like the classic anti-hero
Oh, okay.
Guy.
I mean, the whole thing about him explaining, like, okay, Riot is like the leader of these symbiotes, and Venom is like, I'm kind of a loser back on my planet. I'm like, what?
That's
A
that's
loser?
that's the
that.
stupid I'm talking about. That's where like you go like, huh?
That's what I'm
Yes.
saying. Like that, like there was a couple moments where, like that, and it usually was coming during like a Venom line. I'm like, wait, what did he just say? He's a loser? What does it mean to be a loser on the symbiote planet? Like, what do you have to have done or not done to be considered a loser in this society of like symbiotes, parasites?
This
I
Venom has
don't know.
glasses and is just getting like pushed into locker.
I guess it's because he can't like I don't know, rip swords out of his body. Is that it?
But
I love the idea of the symbiote planet being all of these guys. Like, what does Venom act like? I'm trying to put my finger on like this weird like. They all sort of have that same thing of being like, oh, you're gonna come with me, and we're gonna like they're like evil genie from Aladdin or something.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a planet where like that's everybody on the planet. They all act like that.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going? Oh, I'm good. How are you?
It didn't seem like Riot and Venom had that different personalities.
Right,
They
they're
seemed to
all
be
kind of this-
exactly the same kind of personality there, except one was stronger than the other one. That was
but
so
Dom,
funny.
to your point about like this movie's like impact, I when I was when I told people like, oh, we're gonna do Venom on the podcast, I think people like my coworker today had to remember the fun that he had with this movie. That like he's like, wait, did I see this movie? Oh yeah, I did see that movie. I think a lot of people when I was going
Yeah.
through the audience comments is like, you have fun, and then you carry on with your day. Like you will have fun in this movie, but it's not that. It's like a shut your brain off and enjoy. You don't have to think about it. There's no major themes to this movie. It's just you get what you get, and then you can go to the food court.
Well, it's fairly
Works for
predictable
me.
too, right? Yeah, which I didn't really mind. Again, like you going back to the old formula in a way, but yeah, because I even feel like some of the MCU movies towards the end there, even though I enjoyed a lot of them, they seem to also be taking themselves a little too seriously. I don't know. This one, I just appreciate a movie that is just like, screw it, like let's just be as ridiculous as we can. And I mean, that's not to say that like there are some things I admire about. Like I thought the action scenes were pretty good. I enjoy the chase
That
scene.
motorcycle action scene was really fun.
That was
Oh,
great.
yeah. There's definitely some stuff in this movie that we haven't really seen in other superhero movies, which is a good like barometer always for me of how to judge these movies. Like, are they doing anything new?
Mm-hmm.
There's some cool new stuff in this one, I think.
Yeah, I think the physicality from Tom Hardy, like when they're
Yeah.
integrating the CGI with his physical body, I think there's some really interesting visuals. Also, like not just from the CGI aspect, but also from the physical, practical aspect of it too. I think he really had done a good job, like fleshing out like the physicality of what it is to be kind of being torn by like this sort of parasite inside you.
I'm sure he had no like. It's hard to have like a creative to do like a creative thing in an action sequence like. But I found the last action like the whole rocket bit kind of, to quote you, JJ, boring. I've
Well,
seen
that's
that
where-
before in
that's-
movies. We all had like that's
Yeah.
bad
Totally
guy
agree.
versus
That's where the
yeah.
CGI. That's where the CGI really gets a little too much. Like there's that
Yeah.
whole sequence of the two, like the Venom and the Riot, and like kind of like merging together and like ripping each other.
I thought that was
apart.
cool.
Two
looking.
like mounds of
Yeah.
mud.
Yeah. It was like too much. Like what am I even looking at this point? And it seems like at one point like Riot absorbs Venom, and I'm like, how does that work?
Don't
but-
ask questions.
Yeah, that one was like a little harder to follow. And again, at that point, I'm like, I know where this is leading. They're gonna just destroy this rocket. Whereas
I will always ask myself what happens when Venom eats someone. Where does the body go?
I agree. That seems
Does it go into Tom Hardy's like
body.
stomach?
Yeah, because like first he eats a couple heads, right? That's one thing.
Yes.
But then I think Michelle Williams might be as She-Venom might be the first time we see an entire person get eaten by this symbiote, and then she reverts back to a human. She's like, I just ate somebody. I'm like, well, like what is going on? How
Where's
does
the
that work?
body? Yeah, where's
There's
the
like a
body?
handprint sticking out of her.
Yeah.
Get me out of here. Yeah, and then Tom Hardy does it at the end in that grocery store scene, which, like that, the movie to me should have just ended with the mouth coming at you, right? As soon as he says, "We are Venom," then the mouth comes at you, and then it's like credits. That would have been perfect, but it just went on like a little while
just a
longer.
little longer.
Just
Yeah,
like for a
that's
couple of last jokes. I'm
I-
like, ugh, like you had it.
I
You
thought
had
this
it.
movie was gonna end with "Down with the Sickness." At that, like,
Oh my god.
It would have if it came out.
would
in,
have
like,
fit.
if this came out in like the early to mid 2000s, it would absolutely have.
I was like, "Is
that
this
song in the
Eminem?
credits.
This is Eminem."
Oh, it is Eminem, right? I mean, that's another point for the movie that like it so thoroughly like gets you in its world and like gets you so game and excited for its shtick that by the end, like if if Down with the Sickness played,
Oh,
I would have been
I
down
loved
with it.
it.
Like they made that work.
Yeah. Well, I almost was thinking, when does this movie even take place? I guess it like would just take place in, it's just a modern movie, but he's getting like, there were a couple of things where I'm like, this seems like it takes place a little maybe like in the 2000s or something, because he's getting like the physical mail, like everything is late. There's just a couple of things like,
It's out of time.
yeah. I'm like, this, it seems like some of the plot elements, I'm like, this could be solved nowadays with, I don't know, like a smartphone or something. But,
Yeah.
like it seems like this is kind of like ignoring that. It seems like kind of vague when exactly this is taking place.
One question I have, and you guys might know, but if you don't, and like you can easily say, like, don't think about it. At one point, Venom was killing Tom Hardy, right? Like that, like it's just like you're like the longer this thing is, and
Right.
then he doesn't, and then that
Yeah.
is. Did I miss something with that? Did Venom was like, uh, okay, I won't think about it. I won't think about
I'm
it.
not. Yeah, that's a good point because it's like a
That
major
was a major
plot point, right?
and
Like
then I feel like
you can't survive with
The
this.
very
and
the
you-
very nature of having the symbiote in your body is that it is killing you. That is the whole very nature of it. But I guess Venom does something, or decides to stop doing whatever he was doing. So because he just says like, "Oh, I like you," and now all of a sudden I want us to stick together and I want to stay on Earth. And
So I won't.
I just got a
feel-
text
I mean,
from Sony. Don't think about it. That's what it said.
Yeah.
It is pretty quickly that Venom changes his mind, right? He has this whole idea he's gonna like go along with the plan to like get to the rocket and destroy Earth and all this stuff, but then he has just maybe one or two moments where he looks out into the city and goes, "No, I kind of like it. This seems kind of
Yeah,
cool."
he just like decides. I was just watching Man of Steel because I'm getting ready for the Snyder
That starts
cut.
tomorrow for me.
Of course.
Oh, nice. And in that film, I totally forgot that there's this element of like Superman has to choose whether he wants to save Earth or basically eradicate Krypton. And he chooses Earth, of course. But I guess the kind of same thing is happening here. And this symbiote thing is just like, you know what? Fuck the symbiote planet. Like, fuck my kind. I like Earth better. Just kind of weird. You'd think you maybe want to like protect your kind, especially if your whole like species is based on the idea of being these like parasitic like evil demons. Like,
I guess, yeah, because in Man of Steel, at least Clark Kent has grown up on this planet,
Yeah.
was raised by humans. He has some attachment to planet Earth.
yeah, and he's like Krypton had their chance. I mean, I don't think the symbiote planet is like destroyed the way Krypton is. It's just an evil, corrupt planet trying to take over the universe.
Right. I'm not sure why they exactly wanted to come back and destroy humanity. But like again, I just assume because they're evil parasites.
Well, they gotta come.
That's their
They gotta
thing.
come back, right? For this, like, I don't know how either the bad guy or Riot could pilot a rocket. I'm not. Once again, the Sony is my phone is buzzing from Sony. But
There's
the planet
a red dot on your head.
Carnage.
Get
Carnage
down.
is a symbiote. Like they're gonna be
Yes.
making appearances. Like,
Well, I thought they were even setting that up in the lab because you see all the different colored symbiotes, right? And
Oh, right.
From what I understand, Carnage is yellow,
red.
right? And
He's red.
Oh, he's red. Okay, so I think we were seeing all these different colored ones. So I'm like, okay, like, these are like what might be down the line. These other symbiote characters, but I was also confused. So like Riot was like somehow able to escape the spaceship and was possessing various like people in Malaysia. And found the one little white girl in Malaysia to possess so he could come to America. But like, again, like plot stuff, we're like kind of nitpicking at the plot, but that whole thing,
The red dots on you.
probably having the great. But that part I had the hardest time following. Like, what is this other symbiote? Like, where is he going? What is their plan? And like, I somehow figured where to go, and like that Riz Ahmed was the person they needed to find.
And they buddy up
possess,
really
but-
quick. He's like, I can help you. It's like, okay. Like, and once again,
Mm-hmm.
it's stupid, but there is fun to be had. Like, that's how I see it.
Right. I mean, if anything, it kind of knows how ridiculous it is. So it's not like I'm getting like frustrated. I think it's kind of funny. Like, okay, this is like really like dumb and it makes no sense, but like it's kind of adding to the fun of it all. Even the premise. I mean, the idea of this kind of character Venom, like it possesses you. Again, it makes no sense. It eats a whole person and you can turn back into a human. Like none of it really. Like it makes sense for a comic book, I guess. And people have been wanting to come to a film. And in film, you have to like explain things more. People kind of want things kind of more fleshed out. So when you do that for something like Venom, it conceptually starts to fall apart. But you just have to go with it.
I love the exposition in movies like this.
I didn't think it was too exposition-y. I was reading that in a lot of the critics' complaints. Like, oh, there's so much explaining in this movie. I was like,
I didn't get that at all. I have fun throughout the whole time, I think.
Right. I didn't think there was any sort of tedious explanations or anything. I feel like they explain most things by showing it as opposed to a character just talking.
My critic complaint was the tonal, like, it's like they're making points about like this movie is tonally, it does change, but I'm like, what do you want? Like it does have a right to be scary and does have a right to be fun at times. I thought the scene with him, I think the scene with him freaking out in the beginning it's PG-13 scary, if that makes it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like, it's writing a few different genres. Like, it's writing a fine line between, like, moments of, like, action and humor and, all these other kind of genres. But that's fine. Like, we like that about, like, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. That, like, has several genres in one movie. I think it's fine. It kind of is... Yeah, it's hard to explain. I feel like it worked for me. It didn't seem too jarring when it shifted tones. It kind of was all those things blended together at once.
My take on this is, I think, here's my idea. When superhero movies, like as a genre, kind of emerged with movies like Spider-Man and X-Men, back this new era, not like Tim Burton's Batman, but like our generation's comic book movies. I get the idea that all of them were sort of like monolithic in like, this is a superhero movie. The genre of superhero movie is this. Like it looks like Spider-Man. It looks like X-Men 2. Like all of them are modeled after this sort of framework. And then for years we see how this genre continues to grow and expand and change, and we wonder, how can they sustain this? Like, how can we possibly continue to have so many of these? And then by the time we get to a movie like Venom, I think we begin to see that the genre itself becomes less monolithic, and it becomes kind of like a little like microcosm of the industry overall, where like there is a huge like diversity of what these movies can be. Some of them can be apparently like Joker, which is like super dark, super serious. It expects you to take it very seriously. The complete other end of the spectrum that we've started to see now is movies like Venom or Aquaman or like Shazam, which maybe is a little bit more like serious. We're starting to see that like this genre, like it doesn't have to all be the same thing. And honestly, thank God it's not, because if these are going to be the only movies in Hollywood anymore, like the only movies we can see, like thank God there's a movie like Venom, which is just like a fun time at the theaters. Not every movie has to be like this like depressing, like, you know, self-aware thing.
Well, you know, it's superhero movies. I don't even think that's even a genre anymore because it's become so big. Like, what does it mean to be a superhero movie anymore? And
that's a good point.
You're right. Like, it's almost as if the only thing they have in common really is that they're inspired by comic books.
Yeah.
And comic books themselves, too, have a range of genres within that. It's just a type of publication. So I think, yeah, it's fair to say that you have really, you shouldn't limit yourself to one sort of style or structure, because ultimately, like as we've seen these superhero movies that have more, that feel more like sci-fi, or they feel more like fantasy, or they feel more like a comedy or a horror. And again, like they can be any, they're just based on, yeah, it's like when something's based off a novel, it's just based off of graphic novels in this case.
Yeah.
So why do they have to stick to a certain tone?
As they should. I mean, they should be diverse.
It kind of is a pro and con. I do agree with you both. But to add to it, it's kind of a pro and con of the superhero genre in general. Like you can, like, you know, how many times Ant-Man is a heist movie. It's Guardians of the Galaxy is a space opera. The new Doctor Strange movie is going to be a horror movie, the first horror movie of the MCU, and I think there are a few that transcend it, but the superhero aspect comes first. It is going to follow. If it's an origin story, it's going to follow that origin. Bad guy fight at the end. It's gonna, like, the superhero slash space opera. The superhero does come first, and it kind of comes first in this as in Venom as well. I
Well, in terms of structure, like plot,
in terms of plot structure,
like tonally, it could be anything you want.
But I think in the like, I think people are kind of happy when something, even with like Logan, which is like a almost like a quiet Western drama. You don't want that fight at the end. You kind of like, people were so spoiler for WandaVision. I don't, but people were so happy for WandaVision with the with the journey of it, that it does end in a superhero playing with my toys in a sandbox fight. It's still fun. There is fun to be had, but I think people are. I think. I don't know. It's.
Well, how about this?
When you want something different, you know
there
it.
is.
I don't know how to.
Yeah, and how about one superhero movie that comes to mind that doesn't end with the big fight thing? Because I agree, like it feels almost obligatory at this point that it has to have this big climactic fight that everything built towards. But The Dark Knight does not really end. In fact, The Dark Knight even points out, like, this is not going to end in like a big fist fight. This is going to end with the corruption of a character, and so that might be. Maybe what you're talking about, Keith, like that's maybe an example of undermining or subverting, I should say, subverting that obligatory plot structure. And those movies too, I would say that the Dark Knight film series, those are like crime dramas.
It's
like Michael Mann movies.
It's Heat with Batman.
It really is. Really, if you sit down and watch Heat, you're like, oh, it actually is Heat, and it's just
like
Batman
William
in
Fichtner
Heat.
is the same character. It's
yeah.
No, and
funny, man.
And I get it. Like, hey, studios, like, they have to make money, but I like to think with Let There Be Carnage, they have enough. They have the playground set. They can actually do something very fun, unique, and different while also being tonally all over the place. I always think that's a weak
Yeah.
excuse uh for like movies like this. Not for like for like maybe Oscar movies or something like that. That like maybe that's a legit excuse, but I don't know. For Venom, what do you want? Like it's gonna be horror. There's gonna be
Yeah.
horror aspects, but there's gonna be a comic book y aspect to it too.
I think what we admire about a movie like Venom is that it just, like resolved itself to just be a Venom movie. And I think especially earlier on in this new wave of comic book movies, like the early days of the MCU, I think a lot of those movies were trying to be every superhero, like every superhero movie all of a sudden like had to be Iron Man. Like they all like had to have that very strong origin story with a hint of snark and cynicism, and to fall into the modern day. What would it be like if he was actually real, et cetera, et cetera. I think for this genre to last, these movies have to just like try to ignore the rest of the movies and just be like their own character.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to say about a movie like Venom or Aquaman, which I'll always go to bat for, those movies do not give a shit about the surrounding universe. I think they're very concentrated on like, what would a Venom movie look like? Oh, it would look like Tom Hardy as this like sweaty scum bum turns into a mound of mud and like goes insane.
Aquaman
Like,
has
great,
an
do
octopus
that.
playing drums. It knows the kind of movie it is.
Yes,
It
do
knows the
that.
kind of movie it
Don't
is.
make Aquaman. Yeah, don't try to make Aquaman like this heartfelt, like
Like
learning
relatable.
to be
Oh, what?
right, like learning to become a ninja in
Yeah,
Malaysia,
he does.
like Batman
I
Begins.
agree with
Like
you that, but
make it,
I
yeah,
would like. I mean, I just watched. I've been watching a little bit of Justice League on HBO Max.
nice.
Reliving the old days. And I do think
Hmm.
I think people just want like good character development, like heartfelt moments, but it doesn't need that. Like
Yeah,
Aquaman doesn't need that. I think that's what hurt Man of Steel, the realism
yeah,
to it.
man, that movie is so close to being so great, in my
It
opinion.
is, right?
It's
It's like
so many cool things going
Still
on
the
in
best
there.
trailer
There's
though.
so much
Such a
potential.
sad
Still
thing.
one of the best trailers.
Yes, yes.
It's a movie made
Best
for a
superhero
trailer.
film of all time is that trailer. Good soundtrack too.
Yeah, I agree. You kind of have to block out a lot of noise, right? There's a lot of expectation even when something gets greenlit, before you even have a script written. As soon as you say like, "Oh, we're going to make a Venom movie, we're going to make whatever else," then there's going to be all these expectations and people throwing in ideas, and yeah, you just kind of have to make a strong choice and be committed to it, and not be like, oh, so concerned with meeting whatever else might be making other movies successful,
Oh
because you
yeah.
never know. I mean, yeah, you have to really just focus on what will make this character translatable to a film, and not like, oh, what made the MC movies so successful, what made what is making
Yeah,
the DC movies so unsuccessful. And like, we'll just forget about all that, because that
yeah,
Uh,
every movie, even within a genre, is so unique that there's no universal formula.
yeah, Venom actually. It actually went up a few points in my head, just because Venom. I can't think. I mean, there are superhero movie tropes, but I can't think of any movie that like begat it or that it's begatting Bible in Bible. Like, okay, Guardians of the Galaxy. How many? Suicide Squad tried to be that. Like it trickled down into other movies.
yeah,
Deadpool,
Oh, that's the ultimate example of a movie that tried to do too much of what made other movies
but
good,
yeah.
and was its
I
ultimate
agree.
downfall.
Deadpool.
Although I would have loved to see the original cut of Suicide Squad, because I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on in that movie too. As much as people hate it, that's
It's a
another
troubled
one.
production.
There's nothing good.
It's a troubled production for sure. I think the production
Yeah,
is more interesting than the movie. But
yeah, yeah, I
Deadpool,
agree.
Pikachu's Deadpool. Harley Quinn is Deadpool now. But even with Dark Knight, James Bond has that gritty reboot, and that works for the most part. But like it kind of is like once it makes a success, it kind of trickles down, and I don't think Venom has that. like unless I'm
Hmm.
missing something, I don't think Venom has like it trying to be another movie.
Like I
Yeah,
said, if
that's a good
anything, it
point.
kind of feels like what made those early 2000s superhero movies so enjoyable, or even late 90s ones. But yeah, not in the sense that it's ripping them off, but like it's almost like a back to basics in a way,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
there was something refreshing about that.
You come in here again. In fact, you go anywhere in the city preying on innocent people, and we will find you and eat both your arms and then both of your legs, and then we will eat your face right off your head. Do you understand?
Please.
Yes. So you will be this armless, legless, faceless thing, won't you? Rolling down the street like a turd in the wind. Do you feel me?
What the hell are you?
We are Venom.
So I think we can now get to our final thoughts
Okay.
on Venom and give our percentage score. And I think I know where we're going to side with, but let's just make sure. So, Dom, get us started here. What's your final take and your like percentage score for Venom?
Okay. Final take. It is the rare case of a superhero film that truly does not take itself seriously and is also an enjoyable experience. And I do think when you look at the broad spectrum of all these dozens of comic book movies we've seen, that is truly a rare thing. And for that reason, I will always go to bat for it. I don't think it's a perfect film. It's one of those movies that like it's a movie I go to bat for, but it's not great.
Yeah.
Which
Sure,
is,
yeah.
a very specific category that we all have, I think.
I totally agree.
And yeah, I think I would, if I had to give it a percentage, I think I would definitely something in the high 70s, 80s, perhaps even.
Okay. Let's put you down at a
A
79.
C plus.
Okay. Yeah. That's true. I have those movies too where like people should like this more, give it more credit. Not that it should win an Oscar per
Yeah.
se.
Yeah, I love movies like that.
Those are. I mean, if anything, I feel like most movies should be like that, right? You have like your top tier, which is like the cream of the crop, but then your
Right.
bulk of good movies fall into that category.
Mm-hmm.
What's your final take?
Uh, well, when I like, I've been kind of going all around in my the past few days since watching it, how I felt about the movie. There are some times where I'm like, this is like it could have been a little bit better, but there was a lot of I'm like remembering scenes that I had fun with. Uh, I'm gonna give it a 65. Oh, and movies that I always put in the
That's
movies that
fair.
I put in the 60s, it is a tomato by Rotten Tomato standards, but movies that I put in the 60s are they are good. They're fine movies. That I can watch and just going on a lot of people's reactions to it. Like you will have fun, but you might not it might not stick with you that much, except maybe Tom Hardy's performance, which is a big bulk of that.
Yes, legendary.
I feel like my score will be benefiting from the fact that I had low expectations that were obviously surpassed. I was like a naysayer when I first heard of this project. I'm like, what Venom? Like, who needs this when we have, again, like all these other things going on with superhero movies. But I'm watching this. I feel like I've been converted to the Church of Venom.
Yes. At last.
And yeah, like I said, there was something just refreshing about it. And this, so I'll say this too. I was forced to buy this because I could not find anywhere I could rent this or like a free website. So I was
Yeah,
like, this,
you can't stream it anywhere.
It's
for less
crazy.
than like $13, right?
yeah, I had to pay $13 on Amazon, and so this is like my first own digital copy of a movie.
Now you
But-
can watch it whenever you want.
Well, you know what? I think I will. I think this may be a movie I will go back to because I did enjoy it so much, and it's just a something to have on if I just want to like clear my mind and just have like a a shameless good time, then this is the movie for it. So I'll give this
Hell yeah.
a 72. That's what I'm feeling.
Wow. So I went the highest.
Yeah, but I'm like, we're in the same
I
ballpark.
did hear Pray Tell before this conversation that you really enjoyed this movie, Dom, and I was like, you know what? Here looking at some of the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, I'm like, I get it. I get it. Like I can see why someone can really enjoy this movie.
I mean, he
He-
eats
he-
trash. How could I not like it?
It's glorious.
He
Tom
literally
Hardy eating
eats
trash. What else could you want? Come on, critics.
That's all you had to put on the poster for me. I'd be like, I'm good. I don't even need to see it. I'll just go with that
I
for it.
imagine like the director could just like, hey Tom, can you not know? And like Tom is if he's doing it, he's doing it. Like the director could not.
He's
the
committed,
director
man.
could not really like give notes on. Like, don't get in the tank. Don't get in the tank.
I just love the idea of maybe making movie posters from like the image of him in the garbage or in the lobster tank, and just putting Venom over that. That's the movie poster, Venom, and it's like Tom Hardy enjoying a lobster tank bath. Oh man,
I think we overlook the fact that like this is Tom Hardy, just randomly like in one of. I mean, I guess he plays Bane, so it's a little bit more complicated. But when I think of like what would superhero movies have been like in the 70s when like De Niro and Pacino and like Meryl Streep and like
Faye Dunaway,
Ellen Burstyn, Faye Dunaway,
Sidney
like,
Poitier would make a great Black Panther.
I mean, like, who would they have played, these legends of acting, and who are they today? And I think Tom Hardy is not like Chris Evans. Like, he's not Chris Hemsworth.
Right.
He is an actor of like great renown, like one of the closest things we have today to one of those big guys or women from then, in my opinion. And he plays Venom. I mean, how fucking crazy is that?
Yeah, no, it's great. He's so unhinged, and just you can tell this is like him loving what he does.
There's a lesson. There's a lesson about acting in this performance. Just like I imagine,
it's one of the greatest performances.
I think Michelle Williams did say she took the role because Tom Hardy was going to be in it. But I imagine it's like one of those cases where every take is different, like substantially different.
Sure.
My God.
Well, you might have like wound up piecing together like parts of different takes, right? Because some of those scenes are like kind of a lot going on at once, and you kind of have like an overlap of images.
We need the Snyder cut.
So that kind of plays into the
Snyder cut of Venom.
Yes, give us the Fleischer cut.
Tired of these Snyder cuts. Okay, if a movie is not good in the theater, then I'm not going to see it. Okay, God.
Oh man.
All right, so Keith, what's our final score?
Right in the middle, 72.
I love it when the score is my score. So
I think that works.
C plus?
That works.
Or D minus? D
72, I believe, is a C.
I don't do the grades. I don't
Solid
do the grades.
C,
I go by
average.
like, or at least maybe how I view, because 60 is still a tomato in my head. But like,
That's true. That's an F.
no,
That's a D.
A 70 means like it has substance, and I think it does.
Yeah, it's like
I'm in.
it's like it's good, and it's like more than just barely making it, right? There's like some buffer there.
Yeah.
It's like substantial. So I then will officially decree that on Venom we are starting with the audience.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. So encourage everyone to check out Venom. If you're skeptical, then I'm just gonna tell you'll be surprised.
$13.99 on
So
Amazon.
We are Venom.
We'll have
We are Venom.
we are all Venom. All right, so thanks Dom for coming
Yeah,
back
thanks,
again
man.
to the podcast.
Thank you guys.
Always enjoy having you on, and hope everyone goes out and sees Venom and joins us again next time for another Divided Film. All right, thanks a lot, guys. Bye.